Hi, and welcome to Filmmakers Compass Podcast, a show where we talk about movies and, well, more movies. I'm D-Man, joined by CP. CP, how are you doing today?
I am not CP, I am Ghostface.
I can tell if you're only listening and not watching the video right now, CP is holding up the Ghostface mask, which is apparently one of the most famous masks or Halloween costumes, as well as a big component of the movie we will be talking about today. If you haven't already guessed it,
Yep. Makes me ask, D-Man, what is your favorite scary movie?
ooh, we'll get to that. As always, before we jump into our discussion on our movies this week, I do want to do a couple of shout outs. So first up is Ivor, who said directly to CP. He said, CP, love the fact that you went back and took a second chance at Megalopolis. Shows me you take movie criticism seriously. Good job. And he gave the thumbs up. Thumbs up for CP. Well done. What are your thoughts? Because apparently you've seen it twice.
First of all, Ivor, I take movies very seriously. As I'm sure any of you that follow along with the regular posted FCP stories know, I actually told you that I walked out of Megaopolis the first time.
That's where I left off, yeah.
I was like, holy smokes, it's that bad. And I felt really guilty about it because I typically don't turn movies off halfway through, let alone walk out of the theater. So I just was like, you know what? I'm going to buy another ticket and I'm going back and I'm sitting all the way through. And I kind of regret that decision.
I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I've heard
it's probably out of the theaters by now, D-Man.
Yeah, I've heard all of the social media discourse, and it was not positive. It's definitely a movie that, based on the criticism I have heard and even what you've told me, it makes me wonder if this movie will age in any way other than garbage. Like, given time and perspective, will people look back on this movie more fondly? You know, I've also seen that a couple of memes have come from it. You know, something along the lines of Adam Driver saying like, "Why don't you go back to the club?" And
yep,
you know, I haven't seen the movie. Yeah, but I mean, clearly there's some weird stuff. I think there was like John Voight just being like, "What do you think of my boner?" You know, and like,
oh, well, that's actually a crossbow, and then he shoots it through somebody. It's just a very random movie. I think that my takeaway was this: Coppola himself talked very highly about the ideals that he was trying to explore and the themes and like what leads to the collapse of a society. And he's created these characters who are kind of at war with the extreme left and the extreme right. So there's lots of immediate relevancy to the world that we live in today.
Gotcha.
But the problem is he gets too artistic with it and too philosophical with it. And there's all these story arcs that don't actually go anywhere. And there's this really bad writing. And all of a sudden in the middle, the actors start treating it more like a play and they start reading off these really long monologues to the audience directly. And it's just bad. And unfortunately, what it reminded me of is that thing that we've actually talked about on this podcast before, that sometimes skillful filmmakers get to a point in their career where they are so good that nobody wants to say no. No one wants to push back on their bad ideas, and they become these victims of their own success. And that's what happened to Coppola here. You know that this project is really close to his heart. He'd been working on it for a long time. He invested all his own money in making it and getting it distributed. And I'm like, those are all red flags, because obviously, Coppola, you were not taking insight from anyone. You weren't having to run this idea by anyone. You weren't making sure that any studio execs were signing off. And in this case, I think we really needed those studio execs to, bring this back down to regular moviegoer level. This is the type of thing that I'm willing to bet that there are film professors out there that are gonna just love it. But everybody else, it's just bizarre.
Well, I think one of the things we did at the start of 2024, we had talked about our most anticipated films of the year upcoming. We had listed that one, but one of the things that stood out at that time was the movie had not secured a distribution deal. Even though it hadn't screened yet, obviously people are on the, industry insiders are privy to either word of mouth or even some cuts before, right, the final cut that's going to screen somewhere. There was this sense that it was almost like, how is nobody fighting over this? Like, how is nobody outbidding each other for a Coppola film? There was that sort of undercurrent of like, what's really going on here? How come, like, you would think people would throw money down without ever having seen a frame? Yeah. So something felt off. And we even acknowledged it, but I mean, you could sort of feel that undercurrent. And then not only to mention, that one of the advertising campaigns that was run in anticipation of this film was actually one using fake quotes from all of Coppola's past movies, essentially showing critics trashing everything he's done and how they've all aged so wonderfully, right? They're all regarded as these cinematic masterpieces. They've probably been preserved in, the cinematic vault and everything. And so it almost felt like that ad in and of itself was anticipating that the criticism was going to be bad. They sort of already knew it.
One of the parallels that Coppola was drawing was when this film came out, he talked about how he wasn't able to secure distribution for Apocalypse Now at the time, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, Apocalypse Now is a film that was not well received at the time it was released. The surround sound that it was created in wasn't available in most theaters. The tone coming out right at the end of Vietnam was, I think, too heavy for most audiences. People didn't really want to watch it. But when they re-released it a few years later, they had the right technology. We were removed from the Vietnam War. People love the film, and it's a classic today. But this is nowhere near like Apocalypse Now. And the big takeaway I had was Coppola wrote this film, Megapolis, himself. And I don't know that he's done that with most of his other movies. I mean, Mario Puzo wrote The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. So I'm wondering if one of the failures here was Coppola as the visionary director taking on the burden of writing as well. And that's just not his wheelhouse.
I mean, I hate to compare Coppola to Zack Snyder, but I mean... maybe don't write your own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, right?
Sometimes that just works a little better. Get the screenwriters to do their thing. But also, I mean, there's also the 40 years worth of ideas jumbling around. Sometimes maybe that's too much of a mess. Maybe you're pulling from a vault of just too much. It does come off that way, where if you had more of a succinct idea, if you were locked in on exactly what you wanted to do, but it's like over 40 years, this thing has morphed and changed, but you're trying to keep the original essence, but add this. And now we have new technology, so we can do this. And it's like, maybe you just lost the script. You just lost it.
No, I mean, that's what I really hope you go see it because I want to know your opinion. I haven't gotten any message from anyone in our community letting me know that they have seen it. I know very few filmmakers that I know who have gone to see it. So please, will some of you go see this movie before it's out of the theater like Tuesday so we can talk about it? Because I have no one to talk about this film with.
I do feel bad for Coppola though. Not that, I mean, it's not who wants to be the, richest guy in the cemetery. He's up there. If he wants to spend his money making his passion project, then so be it. It's not like he doesn't have more money. I mean, he basically just like leveraged his wineries and stuff. But more than that, it's the legacy. I think he was trying to put a very bold stamp, I think, on his legacy, as this may end up being either his last film or one of his last films. And I feel bad from that standpoint.
I feel bad for Sofia Coppola because that's literally her inheritance right there. All those wineries that she thought she was going to get to have a piece of,
gone. 120 million, I heard, roughly ish.
I think it made like 9 back, maybe.
I can't imagine that it honestly cost that much. It's shocking. But I mean, basically, I'm assuming a lot of it just went to the cast.
It's got a pretty impressive cast. That's probably part of it.
Well, I'll try to get there and go see it, CP, so we can talk about it honestly. And maybe even, we can get into a longer segment on the podcast and actually sort of address it. Because here's where I think we could get a full episode. Our next shout out goes to Alex. So Alex, thank you for sending us a message. And he mentioned that he was disappointed with Joker 2, another box office bust as of today. And I'm sure you're going to get to it when we go ahead and do the box office breakdown. He said, see it if only for your curiosity, but I won't bother watching it again. And this is from a lifelong Joker fan. Now,
wow.
know Alex, he actually does have Joker artwork up on the walls at his place. He is a huge Joker fan, Batman, the Rogues Gallery, all of that. And so I know he was really looking forward to this movie. He even sent photos to our group chat of him at the premiere. He was at one of those nice theaters where they have servers that bring you food. It was like a premiere. So I know he was pumped. He was ready to go. And he was definitely let down. So CP, I don't know if you have seen Joker 2.
I have not. I'm actually going tomorrow.
Yeah, see, like I need to try to get there to see both these movies because we could do a podcast deconstructing what happened here, both from a marketing standpoint, from writing, from overall filmmaking, because these were two of the most anticipated movies of the year.
Well, and we know that Warner Brother was anticipating Joker just, being a slam dunk.
Well, and the problem with Joker is that it's literally failing based on word of mouth, because I think everybody actually was excited to see it. We might need to do a segment on literally, CP, shows like ours, because social media, YouTube, everything is flooded with all these movie reviewers, movie podcasts, movie discussions, people coming on, right? People are looking to these individuals to kind of give them a thumbs up, thumbs down, instead of just reading critics' reviews. They're looking to these people now. And I mean, very quickly, they can determine, or they can decide whether a movie is going to be successful or ruined.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it play out in real time. So there's a lot to talk about here. And we may end up doing an episode on this because it's pretty wild. Moving on with our shout outs, as I mentioned last week, Drucker wrote us a novel. So it's not even over yet, and I want to keep reading from his novel. So he said, don't understand the hate. Sandlot is always a good time, easily the best baseball movie of all time. I think when we were referencing hate, it was just the fact that I think it's often kind of disregarded as one of those kind of kids movies, and it's not held up in the conversation, just like great baseball movies. Right?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Drucker, I agree with you. I love The Sandlot. It's probably my favorite baseball movie, and it's certainly the one I watch the most. He goes on to say, CP, here you got more support coming in.
I love it, Drucker.
And Beetlejuice was meh at best. Saw it last weekend and I was disappointed. I love the original and I love the musical. The sequel wasn't nearly as fun or quirky, or maybe it was too quirky. I don't know. Something was off. Too many storylines, like you said. I also didn't think the dance scene was as fun as the first one. Daylight come and we won't go home. He does agree with you. I actually, like I said, I sort of disagreed. I actually found the movie to be quite fun. I don't love the original, but I do like it. I felt that it did sort of capture that spirit. So I don't know. I'm going to disagree with you guys on this one. Sorry, Drucker. But CP, he always loves the support. And it looks like everybody's in your corner this week, CP.
There's nothing wrong with everyone realizing that I'm right. So good job. Keep it up, folks. Keep it up.
Big shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Tacone, Mikey, congratulations, man. They got married this weekend, and I was fortunate enough to attend the wedding. It was a lot of fun. It was a little bit of travel. I had a great time. I even got to dance my ass off. I had a couple of tequila sodas. It was a fantastic time. So, Mikey, thank you so much. And CP, just because I know you and I have played around in this space, I wanted to say they had a wedding ceremony video, and the production quality on this thing was wild. It was amazing. Like, you would have really appreciated it. If I could, I would take that video and I would break it down into a shot list, steal the composition, and then just go sell that to other couples. Because it was really well done. I was quite impressed as somebody who's done wedding video before. So this was like high end. I really like that. And there were some cool speeches. They actually, check this, CP, it was pretty wild. But one of the groomsmen said he gave a speech, and then he was like, you know what, though? The best person to give a speech for Michael Tacone is Michael Tacone. And so Mikey got up thinking he was going to give him the mic. Wrong. He actually had an AI clone Mikey's voice, and then they played a Michael Tacone speech by AI.
That's hilarious.
It was wild and shockingly accurate.
Oh my! I can only imagine what it said, and I imagine it sounded exactly like what Mikey would say if he was giving a speech about himself.
Oh yeah, and then I do have to thank the Hellisons for letting me come and hang out at their Airbnb before the wedding. That was fun.
Was there a did anyone write a song about Michael Tacone?
I did play the Michael Tacone song, yes. And okay, get this, CP. I know we're going off track here just a little bit, but this is so wild. It needs to be said. So the Michael Tacone song is a relic from our IBC podcast days way back in the day, right? This song is dedicated to the fact that one time Matt Hellison, our co-host on IBC, stayed the night at Mikey's house, and he ended up sleeping in Mikey's bed, which was full of crumbs because apparently Mikey eats sandwiches in bed, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward to today, and Mikey had asked me if I could record the speeches. So I have them on video. And one of the bridesmaids, whom I've never met, and I'm safely assuming has never listened to an episode of IBC, much less heard the Michael Tacone song, in her speech referenced that one time she came over to Mikey and Becky's place and slept in their bed, and there was crumbs. And she said this in her speech, and it was wild. And all of us, I swear to you, that knew this song were like, how? How is this happening right now? True story.
That is hilarious. And now I'm determined that we need to bring Mikey on this podcast as a guest.
We might need to, just to allow him to defend himself. Plus,
Or
he does love to hear himself talk. He also loves movies. I mean, I think he would love to talk to us about like Seinfeld or Dark Knight or something, you know?
Oh
So
gosh.
maybe we'll
All
get
right.
him on. I mean, but I'm telling you, the fact that that happened just blew my mind.
Well,
But yeah, I
sure.
did. I had the Michael Tacone song queued up. It was perfect.
Nice. Well done.
Maybe if anybody's actually curious, maybe next week we'll get it queued up on here and we can play.
We might have to do that.
Yeah, just so everybody knows what we're referencing. So, and then finally, I just wanted to say good luck to all those out there affected by the hurricanes. I know this is a crazy time. So, CP, I mentioned earlier a few months back when we were doing the podcast that I had gone to Florida with my family. This is just south of Tampa. It's called Indian Shores, and it is literally
Doesn't exist anymore.
I know it might get wiped off the map. So even for just where I was at in my vacation, everybody down there that was, so kind and gracious while we were all there, it's just crazy, man. This place is going to get hammered. And I mean, we stayed right on the beach, right near the beach, boy. Yeah, half-baked reference right there. But that does it for shout outs. So CP, I'm going to throw it over to you. Take us into our box office breakdown.
Oh. All right, folks, it is time for our box office breakdown. So there was a major movie that came out this weekend. Y'all know it, Joker Folie à Deux. It actually made close to $40 million.
Is that good?
Well, that's not terrible, except for the fact that I think Warner Brothers was thinking this thing was going to make close to like $100 million. And that doesn't seem to be the case.
For reference, I read an article that said that approximately the first one in its opening weekend made closer to like 92 million. Mm-hmm. And then it did make over $1 billion at the box office after its entire domestic and international run, which that was a sleeper hit. Nobody thought Joker was going to make that much money. And I think they thought they had something really special on their hands. And here we are.
We'll see what happens. Just jumping in the box office. So number 5, Speak No Evil, D-Man. Still hanging around. As you said, now it is reaching horror movie season, so I don't expect it to potentially drop out of the box office just yet. I think that's actually going to turn into a really good run for Universal Pictures.
It sounds like it. I mean, if it's a horror film, I bet it was made on the cheaper end, and it sounds like they're making bank.
Yeah, the total gross is about what Joker's made already, so who knows?
Jeez. Yeah, I bet it's good. I bet that's in the black.
Oh, totally. Number 4 is Transformers 1. Which is up to about 50 million totally domestically. Now, D-Man, you did see this one, correct?
Yeah, I did.
What'd you think?
I actually really enjoyed Transformers 1. I thought it had a very fast-paced plot. I thought the animation was great, very colorful, very vibrant. It was very entertaining. I liked seeing the origin story. It reminded me a lot of X-Men First Class and sort of the Professor X and Magneto dynamic between Optimus and Megatron. So it was really good. I liked, they sort of end up where we know they end up. So the movie is a full-on prequel. It takes us, to where we know it's going to go. Along the way, there was quite a lot of adventure. I thought it was fun.
So that has made close to $100 million total when we consider the domestic box office and the worldwide box office so far. If you remember, at the time of opening, this had not opened in all theaters. Paramount was planning more of a slow rollout. So I actually think that this is going to end up being a success for Paramount by the time it's out of the theaters completely.
I mean, it's not making live action numbers, so I don't know if they were hopeful that this would be on par with the other Transformers movies. I think as long as their expectations were in check, it is an animated movie. Now, that's not to say that, right, Disney and Pixar have proven time and again that you can get $1 billion out of an animated movie. But I am saying, though, that like if perceptions of Transformers are that, right, the best versions are the live action ones, then you're kind of tiering them, and this one might be perceived to be a little bit less.
Yep.
So it might perform that way as well.
Number 3 in the box office, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice still hanging around. It's made over $400 million worldwide, but as we've talked about every single weekend when we review this film, $266 million was made domestically. So this is not translating overseas, but a hell of a payday for our friends at Warner Brothers.
I am happy for Tim Burton and Michael Keaton, to be able to kind of get their moment in the sun. And then especially for Michael Keaton after, I think everybody was, so amped up for his reprisal of Batman and the Flash and, bringing back Batman 89 and then the dumpster fire that we got.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I've said many times, I enjoyed that film. I found it fun. I actually wasn't a major hater. I think if a movie's fun and entertaining, even if it's, special effects suck and there's some poor cameos and like different things, I'm sort of willing to forgive some of that as long as I'm having a good time. And I felt like it was that movie. But by and large, people hated it. And Michael Keaton didn't sort of get that, ride off into the sunset. And with this one, even though, God, I don't know how old Michael Keaton is, but I mean, he's still bringing a lively performance to Beetlejuice.
Yeah,
Pretty cool. Sorry, Drucker.
Number 2 in the box office, The Wild Robot. This was number 1 last weekend.
Ooh, I got to see that. I'm going.
And this has made over $100 million worldwide. I will not see this. This is not in any way something that piqued my interest. So you tell me all about it.
I love adventure. Like I just do.
You also love robots. So
I love robots. Yeah.
like
I'm so stoked.
All of your favorite things. That is the domestic box office this weekend. When we take a look at the international box office, the major takeaway I have is when we look at how things are shaping up, what I would consider Western countries, Australia, Poland, Spain, France, Italy, in all of these, Joker is the number 1 movie.
Okay.
In much of Asia, the number 1 movie is The Wild Robot. And then we still have Deadpool and Wolverine killing the box office at some of the more, what I would consider the smaller markets that aren't necessarily in the forefront of when we're collecting box office data. Places like Finland.
I mean, for what it's worth, I know Inside Out 2 had a great run internationally, but it did debut on Disney Plus. It is out. You can just watch it now, stream it. So I'd assume that would affect its box office after that. Maybe not internationally, but at least like domestically. Like, of course, it's going to drop off. You can watch it at home.
Yeah, right. So, and just as we're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, because it's still out there worldwide doing well, it has made over $1.3 billion, quite the payday. And when we look at the domestic box office, obviously this is no longer in the top 5, but it is actually holding steady at 7. They're still making money. Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So
still making money. Well, okay, CP, before we move on to our topic this week, while we're acknowledging the box office and essentially Joker 2, I wanted to see if you're willing to acknowledge that James Gunn is officially now the savior of the DC EU.
We will never acknowledge that James Gunn is the savior of, well, anything.
Dude, get your James Gunn fanboy gear out and start getting ready for Superman, because the DC universe is a dumpster fire. I don't think they have anything going for them right now that they've burned Joker.
I know, right?
Just the comics. I mean, the comics are amazing.
Yeah, but cinematically, no, you're right. Joker, they were thinking they're going to make $1 billion off of it.
Yeah, so literally, James Gunn is the man. Like, and even you have to be getting amped. I mean, Superman is your favorite superhero. James Gunn is your 3rd favorite director.
Yes, my 3rd favorite director after what's his face that did
Spielberg and Tarantino, and then James Gunn.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, totally.
Well done, CP. One of the maybe okay, add that to the segment list. Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll talk Megalopolis, Joker 2, and then CP's outlook on the DCEU, and that's where we'll end that.
Oh,
that would be a good episode, I think. God, I think you would get super fired up about that. So if we do an episode dedicated to like the DCEU, I will personally reach out to James Gunn on Twitter and see if he wants to come on and talk with us.
I would love to talk to James Gunn about what he is doing, or more importantly, not doing over there at DC.
And I'll tell you what, we're not changing this podcast for shit. We'll Zoom him in here. We're not even going to meet up with him in person.
Well, I don't want to meet up with him in person, man.
Yeah, I'll just be like, hop on the call, Billy. Let's talk about it. That'd be pretty dope if he came on, though. I mean, I like James Gunn. I like Guardians of the Galaxy. Sorry, CP. Make you relive.
You're such a disappointment sometimes.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into our main topic this week, which, as you foreshadowed with your ghost face mask, we are talking about Wes Craven's Scream
from 1996.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the film, CP.
Well, it was not made by James Gunn, so that makes it worth watching in its own right there. I think that what people love about Scream, and this is one of the things that I love about Scream, is it's a very aware horror movie. Now, we've seen a lot of films kind of replicate that as an homage to Wes Craven and what he did with Scream. But when it first came out, this was a movie that understood all the tropes of horror films. And very intentionally, the filmmakers tried to play into those tropes to create their own version of humor and suspense and drive a story where not only we as the audience, but the characters themselves were aware of what was going on in a horror movie.
Yeah, I think my favorite sort of meta line within the movie is at the end when Jamie Kennedy is still alive after like getting stabbed and he's like, "Oh, thank God I'm a virgin."
Yeah, right.
And sort of playing right into that trope that like the virgins never get killed, which he stated outright while they were watching a horror movie within the movie at the party that they were at. And of course they have, they literally do have so many tropes laid throughout, but at the same time, they're acknowledging them almost wink, wink right there on the screen.
Yeah. I think Scream also did a great thing in the sense that obviously I think the 1980s are really considered the heyday of horror film, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's at the edge of, Halloween, but we got the Friday the 13th movies, we got the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, we got tons of incredible horror franchises, especially the slasher movies. And when you look at the box office, they were kind of trending out of style going into the 90s. And Wes Craven really brought that back with Scream by making a smart, aware horror film that he did.
Yeah, and he also sort of turns everything on its head. So obviously, if you haven't seen Scream, spoiler alert, but instead of making the slasher villain, a la the Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, sort of this undead, unbeatable version of, the monster, they end up making it to high school kids. And they are defeatable, right? They're not some crazy monster. They're just a person behind the mask.
Yep.
And so even though, I think all of the, whether it's Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, there was this trope that these guys were always sort of these monster villains. And in this case, they turn that on its head. And they do really fun things. Like in this movie, it was completely ahead of its time with the person calling using cell phones. Or, well, I guess it's not always a cell phone, but sometimes it was.
Using phones. Yeah.
Yeah. But using phones, I actually read that beeper sales increased dramatically after Scream because people were very scared to answer their phone, not knowing who was calling. So, sorry, like beepers or like call waiting or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
So you could see the number and identify who it was. Because, yeah, apparently people got really nervous about answering the phone, But like that was really cool. Because you didn't see a lot of that, I guess at the time, and this is what I was reading, was that they didn't like to show characters talking on the phone without showing people on both sides. So, or at least knowing who was on both sides. And because you had this unknown caller and you had to keep the camera on the person just receiving the call, it was a little bit of a gamble from a filmmaking standpoint, because they were like, we don't know how the audience is actually going to react. Like this hasn't happened really a lot on film. Whenever they would have people talk, they'd either cut and show one guy, then show the other guy. They could split screen it. Or like I said, you would know who the other character was. Like it's just somebody talking to their mom. And so there's not this overwhelming sense of unknown and dread. And they were able to create that by just having a character answer the phone.
Well, and I think when we watch that scene, I'm sure this is down the line, but when we watch that scene, there's two things that Wes Craven does really masterfully. First, Drew Barrymore's character is busy the entire time, right?
Popcorn.
She's making
movies.
popcorn. Yeah, she's doing things. So she's walking around the house. She's looking outside the window. She is not just standing there talking on the phone.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and this is the true brilliance in Scream, everything that Ghostface says on the phone is a question.
Really? Oh, I'd have to rewatch it because I love that opening scene.
Everything he's constantly asking questions, propelling the action forward. And I think that that's a real masterful technique that is something you don't really notice unless we're really watching the film, but it keeps us as the audience engaged. And more importantly, it keeps her character engaged.
And not only questions, he's also asking trivia questions,
Yep.
which us in the audience are even more engaged in because we're like, oh, I know that answer.
We love scary movies.
I think the one that's hilarious is when he's like, who is the killer from Friday the 13th? And then she's like, Jason, it's Jason. Jason, I know it's him. And he's like, wrong.
Yeah.
Jason doesn't make an official appearance. I know he does. He pops out of the boat at the end, but like he doesn't make an official appearance as the killer until Friday the 13th part 2, and it is his mother, and he's like, oh, now your boyfriend dies, and you're like, and it's weird because like they do things in this movie where I'm like, I don't know exactly what's happening, and that was one of those moments where like at the very beginning, the boyfriend tied up on the patio by the pool, he just sort of like gets stabbed, but like by what or who?
No, he gets cut open.
Yeah, but like did he just like run by and like I don't know.
Yeah, and I think they just get away with a lot by alluding to the fact, that there's multiple ghost faces, and that solves all the questions we have in an audience if we know there's really 2 killers running around instead of 1. Sorry for the spoiler, folks.
Yeah, but that opening sequence, I do love it though, because if you've ever been home alone when you were younger, especially back then when, right, everybody wasn't as connected as we are today, right? I mean, now we have a cell phone in our pocket. We're probably a part of chats and, some of us probably being tracked, but back then, you were kind of on your own. You could see once she steps outside that this is sort of not a farm area, but
it's rural and
rural-ish. Yeah. And so the idea that this guy's like, hey, I'm at your front door is like really creepy.
Yeah.
Really creepy. And then like he says that and the doorbell rings and you're like, ooh, oh shit, that cannot be a coincidence,
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was a really creepy scene and such a well done intro because I think the intro to this movie basically covers everything that you're going to get from the film.
Yeah.
Just dialed up to 10. And so I thought it was incredible because it just sets the stage so well. It's probably one of my all-time. I think didn't we do a list one time where we did favorite opening sequences and I had like Dark Knight and Scream and I don't know, a couple different ones. Saving Private Ryan. Even though I guess Saving Private Ryan technically is like a cemetery, but everybody only thinks of Normandy.
Omaha Beach.
Omaha Beach, yeah. So anyway, I love what they're doing with the genre in that way. But I wanted to throw it over to you, CP. Do you think Wes Craven, as he's making Scream or working on the script, is he critiquing the horror genre or celebrating it, or maybe a little bit of both here?
Well, I actually think it's kind of 3 things. First of all, I think he is critiquing the horror genre because, as we said, he made one of the greatest horror movies of all time in the 80s, and lots of copycats came out, and I think that there was a big landslide in quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
2, I think he is definitely celebrating everything that he loves about slasher films and horror movies. Wes Craven has gone on record many times saying that the original Night of the Living Dead is one of his all-time favorite movies, right? One of the first major scary movies out there.
Yeah.
But I think the third part is, and when we really look at the 1990s, I think, when we look back at the 1990s, this makes a lot of sense. I think he is talking directly to the critics and to, the mom mafias out there about the whole violence in movie thing, which was getting a lot of attention in the mid-90s.
Yeah, this is across the board. We're seeing, the parental advisory labels on rap music, concerts, the whole fuck the police and different things. Well, then there's video game violence and then by extension, movie violence. And so this seems like it fits right into that conversation because this movie is quite brutal when it does go to the lengths of showing things. There is quite a bit of blood. Yep. There's a very graphic depiction of Drew Barrymore hanging as she's found by her parents after she's brutally murdered, and then of course they have her dressed in light colors, I think a white sweater. So, the blood is very prominent.
Yeah.
They don't have her in like a black sweatshirt and, we could tell there's blood on it. It's like, no, they made it very, very bloody. Yeah, if you fast forward all the way to the end of the movie, there's blood everywhere. People are getting shot. People are getting stabbed. People are stabbing each other on purpose.
There's a lot of movie violence.
Yeah, it's quite crazy. So, yeah, I think that had to be a response. But yeah, more than that, I think overall, there was this sense that like the slasher genre had sort of maybe peaked. You know, we had our classics, and then there was just this inevitable deluge of sequels. And, you know,
Mhm.
especially in the horror genre, I mean, I don't know if any sequels really surpass the original. It's kind of like they just get worse and worse and worse, you know, to the degree that if you look at slasher villains like Freddy Krueger and not particularly Michael Myers, but like Jason Voorhees and some of these guys, they almost sort of become comical as it keeps going on.
Oh
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
you know, Freddy, you think of maybe Chucky, where it's like at one time this was supposed to be scary, and now it's like kind of a joke. We love the character and we want more of the character, but instead of like doing the whole charade of being like, oh, we're going to make another horror movie, they're like, just bring him back and make him a wisecracking, you know, maniac.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I feel like it was a little bit in response to that. And then obviously, let's go ahead and take a look at Ghostface as the villain.
Yeah.
So where do you rank Ghostface? Because I think one of the unique things about Ghostface is that it's it's just a mask. It's never one person. It's not the same person, right? Like Michael Myers is always Michael Myers. You know, Jason
Freddy
is
Krueger
Jason.
is always Freddy Krueger.
But
Yes.
like Ghostface can be anybody.
Well, and I think especially for the, down the line in the Scream genre, I think that's something that they really lean into in the franchise. Anyone can put on the ghost face mask and be the killer. And that's a great source of tension in later films because as an audience, we know this, but the characters also know this. Who can you trust?
Yeah, and now again, you watch all these slasher flicks. I guess there's no upfront knowledge that this isn't some demon from hell,
Mhm.
right? It
Yeah.
does just look like a costume. It does. But
Yeah.
I guess for the protagonists that don't know who's behind the mask, I mean, you could assume maybe it's some sort of, ghouly, demon or something.
Mhm.
But I will say that you do watch many times Ghostface tries to take people down or stab them. I mean, I think he gets kicked in the nuts a couple times in
He
this movie.
trips. Yeah. Yeah.
So they also make him very sort of
Human.
human
Yeah.
in that regard, where he's not like he can't get shot 50 times and then he just keeps coming. And you're like, oh my God, how do we kill this guy? And you're like,
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you don't, you die. No, they make him sort of somewhat vulnerable, and I think this gets lampooned perfectly when you go to the Scary Movie franchise. So
Yeah.
particularly Scary Movie 1. Like I think one of my favorite shots is like in that one, the girl's all scared and she's on the phone, and then they show him like they show Ghostface and he's just sort of like running through the house, and he
Yeah.
looks like such an idiot,
Yeah. Yeah.
sort of like
Yeah.
sneaking around, and then he like stubs his toe and he's like, oh fuck, you know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And he's just like a regular dude in a mask trying to freak out this girl, fumbling along like we all probably would when we don't know a certain environment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think they lampoon him perfectly. Like they do that scene where they're lampooning the opening sequence, and he goes to stab like Carmen Electra, and then he pulls out like silicone. And he's like, ugh, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like he's just a weird dude. And I think Scary Movie totally like plays into that. Like they have the scene where they're watching the horror flick at the party, and I think he sits down with them like they don't know that he's like a
Yeah.
killer.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
smoking a joint. He's like hanging out with them and like, oh hey, what's up, guys? And
Yeah.
they're, hey, have you seen the killer? He's like, nope, I don't know. So I don't know. I thought that really did a good job of sort of playing with the whole concept of not having it be this demon person. And that's how you literally get the Scary Movie franchise.
No, you're right.
I don't know. It is interesting though, because you and I looked this up. When it comes to Ghostface, we discovered that mask and that costume were not made specifically for Scream.
Well, yeah, and that was something that I had always wondered because it has become so iconic, as you said. It's one of the most popular Halloween costumes. Obviously, this very basic, almost childish looking mask has a reputation for one of the greatest, antagonists in a horror film franchise that's now done what, 6 movies and a 7th on the way. So I was wondering, and yeah. So anyway, you go ahead.
Yeah, well, I have a quote from screenwriter Kevin Williamson that no one could agree on a mask. And I remember we were in a location and we found Ghostface in a box of storage stuff in a garage. Wes Craven immediately looked at it and said, "This is like the famous Scream painting," which has been sort of an anecdote related to this movie for a long time. And it does
Mhm.
sort of look like that. Although, was it intentionally? I don't know. But obviously, it feels like there's a level of inspiration there. And they go on to say, and so we took that to our production and we said, riff on this, make something like this. They must have done 20 different designs. Every one of them was rejected by the studio. And finally, we were like, why don't you just get the rights to this mask? Which was created in 1991 as part of Fun World's Fantastic Faces collection, and Dimension Films was able to reach an agreement and use the mask. And this proved extremely profitable for Fun World, who owns both the mask design and the name Ghostface. And since Scream has debuted, Ghostface has become the most worn and sold costume for Halloween in the United States. And they said, yes, that does include the awesome blood pumping Ghostface mask everybody saw in the 2000s.
Yep.
So, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty neat that, obviously this costume was around. And it's weird because you and I also mentioned this, where in the film itself, characters have access to the Ghostface mask that are not the killer. So like other high school students show up at school to try to freak people out wearing the costume, which leads you to believe that even within the world of the movie, this costume is not unique to the killer. It is a costume that is accessible at a Halloween store.
Yep.
So, which was pretty cool. Again, another neat way that I think they're sort of riffing on that whole concept. Like, instead of giving the slasher a wholly unique look, they're like, put him in a Halloween costume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then that'll be the most popular Halloween costume. And it is.
Yep.
And if even people that have never seen Scream, because I don't know how often within the Scream franchise he's referred to explicitly as Ghostface. Yeah, I think normally they just call him the killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even if you've never seen Scream, you've definitely seen that costume. It's almost impossible, especially in American culture.
Yeah, no, you're right. And unlike Freddy and Jason and stuff, it's a really easy costume to put together. You just get a mask, you're good to go.
Yeah, really. I mean, it comes with like the black thing, but I mean, hypothetically, you could pair that with almost anything that's a Halloween costume and it'd probably work.
Yep.
So, I mean, you could have like a Texas Chainsaw Ghostface or like,
yeah,
you could like really, you could have like one of those inmate, the orange jumpsuit, and then you could have like orange jumpsuit,
like prison Ghostface. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you could pair it with so many things and like it would totally work. I don't know. I'm a big fan of that idea that you keep this villain human. They're leaning into the idea that the costume itself is not even wholly unique. But I wanted to turn our attention then to the actual story of Scream. And what are your thoughts on that? Which it's sort of this revenge plot. Do you think that works?
I think that it does, because a lot of times, how do I want to phrase this? I think a lot of times there is a revenge element to classic horror films, right? Mm-hmm. But I think sometimes the problem is it's a little...
Well, I feel like what happens with slasher flicks is that a lot of times characters end up in the wrong place, wrong time. A la Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Our car broke down and we went to go get help. Boom. Now you're in literally a haunted house and someone's trying to kill you. Friday the 13th, you end up at this campsite where it's like, it's not really related to the teens that are there so much as like you happen to be there and you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. Even Halloween, to the extent that like there ends up being this history between Laurie and Michael Myers, but really like it's not anything wholly unique to her out of the gate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so with Scream, I think one of the things they're doing that's unique to this story is that they're giving this backstory to Neve Campbell's character where they're essentially saying that her mom was...
it's all because of Sydney's mom.
Yeah, within the film, she's called like a whore and a slut, and apparently she veered outside of her marriage and had an affair. Got brutally murdered. No one really knows why specifically, but they think that it was the person that she was having the affair with wanted to, either end the affair and cover it up, so he murdered her and tried to make it all just go away. So I think his name was Cotton, and he ends up in jail on false testimony from... Is her name Sydney?
Neve Campbell's character?
Yeah, I think it's Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney Prescott.
Yeah. On Sydney's testimony. Well, the whole story of the Ghostface killers and what they're doing is completing their final revenge because, ta-da, Sydney's boyfriend, Billy, is actually the son of the person who she was like having an affair with. I don't know, it wasn't Cotton, but it was somebody that she was having an affair with, which caused his mom to abandon his family. And so
Hmm.
he
Hmm.
goes on this sort of killing spree to just get revenge. And it's a revenge plot,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And he sucks in his his buddy Stu to,
Yep.
make it all work because it'd be pretty hard to do all that on your own, make the call and be the killer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it ends up, which again, surprise, it's two people or two
Also,
people.
a major first because up until this point, all killers were the one killer.
Yeah. And then you end up figuring out, you're like, who is it? Who is it? And they do a great job at misdirection by immediately suspecting Billy, which almost seems too easy.
Hmm.
Right? He
Hmm.
comes to Sydney's room and he drops a cell phone, and she 100% is like, oh, it was him, which is wild to even suspect that because why would he do that, from her perspective? But she's terrified and he's got the cell phone, right? Plus,
Yeah.
he was there. So,
Yeah. Well, and then, right, like two scenes later, when they're at school discussing the murder, both Billy and Stu are accused along with everybody else. All the teens are accusing one another. It's you, it's you. No, it could be you. I didn't do it. And so, because of that, we almost just assume it's like they're any other teenager in the town.
yeah, like the movie is making it seem way too obvious that it would be them.
Yeah.
Kind of makes us as the reflexive slasher film fan sort of be like, "Ooh, I've caught on to what they're doing." And then they throw it right back in your face at the end. They're like, "Yeah, it was me the whole time.
Yep.
You guys were all right originally, and you're stupid for second guessing yourself because yeah, it was me." And I feel like that's how like the script, that's how it's like playing with the genre is they are like they're taking that and saying like, "Hey, who's the killer?" And then they're just throwing it right back at you. You think within a few years, I think we got a movie called I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yep.
And it was kind of like, who's the killer? And it's this backstory about this person that they hit with their car and drowned. But it's not a person up within the group, it's this outsider that came back to haunt them or, whatever, or murder them.
Yeah. There's not really
And
haunting in that one, but yeah.
no, this is like, it's a person within the group instead of this outsider that nobody knows and is
Yeah.
more frightening. And so it's weird because it works. And then they do quite a few good jump scares
Yep.
throughout the movie. But I wanted to ask you too, do you find Scream scary?
No, I think Scream does a is the perfect example of a good thriller, right? Even to the point that I mean, Wes Craven himself and the screenwriter, what's his name, Kevin Williamson, both acknowledge the opening scene is an homage to Psycho.
Okay.
You know how there's this big star who comes on screen and then is immediately wiped out at the beginning of the movie. She's murdered, and we end up following a whole separate crew of characters throughout the story. And I think that they're really trying to tap into what this is, which is a great suspense thriller. Because we don't know who's trying to kill Sydney, but they are trying to the entire movie.
And I do like too the suspense that is created through the phone conversation. I think
Mhm.
that's one of the highlights of this movie is sort of who's on the other end of the line. If you don't know, that can kind of be a little creepy.
Mhm.
And like I mentioned, they have a couple good jump scares. I think one of the first ones was when Billy like pops up in the window when he just shows up to her room. She thought she heard something outside, and then it's like, got you. But overall, I didn't find Scream to be particularly terrifying. Like, oh, I gotta close my eyes or like look away.
Yeah.
I think other movies I've seen within the genre, there's sort of that Asian remake, Ring, Grudge, some of, Exorcist. There's some of those where you're almost like, I need to close my eyes. This is really scary. And this isn't one of them. I think you want to watch.
Yeah.
So it's more fun to actually enjoy it rather than not. And I always love in Scary Movie when they're like walking to school and they have that scene and she is like walks up to this homeless guy. He's like, "Oh, miss, do you have $1?" And she's like, "Oh, you must be hungry. Here's a sandwich." And he like takes the sandwich and throws it back and hits her in the head. And he's like, "I said $1, bitch."
So speaking of Scary Movie, just because this popped in my head, when Kevin Williamson was actually writing the first draft of Scream, he actually titled the film Scary Movie.
Oh, that is interesting.
And so then, 5, 6 years later, we get the Scary Movie franchise. Anyway, just thought that was a fun bit of trivia.
Dude, it's crazy. If you think about how many movies and how many sequels there are for Scream and then Scary Movie, and you think about all the money that this one film
Concept.
like generated once it took off when you're talking Halloween costumes and all this stuff. A lot of people probably got rich off this movie. I mean, Monica Geller did.
Well, they definitely. I know that pretty much as soon as when Kevin Williamson wrote the screenplay for the film, he wrote two like 5 to 10 page treatments for sequels. And so almost as soon as the opening weekend, it was through the opening weekend, the studio was like, start that next script.
Green light.
And if you recall, Scream 2 comes out almost with like a year of Scream 1 because they're like, get it out there.
Have you seen all the Scream movies?
I have.
Now, what are your thoughts on the sequels within this franchise? I mean, is Scream 1 always the best one?
I think Scream 1 is obviously the best one, but I know there are critics and filmmakers who do point to Scream 2 as like it better in a lot of ways. And I think the arguments are the pacing's better, the casting's better. I love the first one. I love the second one. After Scream 2, I feel like it really kind
Drops
of
off.
divulges, as all franchises do, into the same thing and over, and then they try to get really clever with, we'll just add more and more Ghostface killers, and now this person's mad about this and this and this, and you need like a massive Venn diagram to figure out who all the characters and the killers are. But at least for the first two, it's based on Sidney Prescott, Billy Loomis. That's what we want.
Dude, it feels like Scream must have been made on like an incredibly awesome budget, because if you look at it, it's like there's house exteriors like in the town and outside the school, and like house.
Yeah, that's pretty much the whole movie, right? It's pretty simple.
Yeah, like they don't overdo stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, there's some scenes like there's one in a bathroom and different stuff, but like that seems so easy to secure or build. You just want to build the set on a lot. It's a bathroom. They might even have one ready made.
Yep.
Like it was kind of crazy because it doesn't get high tech or anything. I mean, fake blood, that's easy to come by.
No, I mean, you're totally right. You're totally right. And I think that's probably another reason for the success. Like, they weren't really reaching. There were some recognizable stars at the time, but I don't think any of this was a movie that I think people went on to be big stars afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's always a good place to be too.
Yeah, well, I mean, Courtney Cox, she's been a part of the franchise for a long time. I mean, they are still making Scream movies. They just came out with a new one with Jenna Ortega in like 2023, which if I recall, you did go see it.
Of course I saw it. But again, part of the problem is they start changing the setting, right? It's not in the small town anymore. That was in New York City. And they start retreading familiar ground, but some of the things that are staples of the genre, they start veering away from. And I just don't think it's as effective.
It's almost ironic that it ends up sort of embodying the things that they're not making fun of, but like just
criticizing, sort
of at least acknowledging in a meta sense earlier in the franchise, where it's sort of, just becomes this other slasher franchise.
Now, I think another really interesting thing too about the Scream franchise, when we're talking about the franchises itself, is Kevin Williamson wrote the first two and I think the third film. But Wes Craven directed all of the first 4 Scream movies, which I don't think is typical, because usually director does the first one, studio goes to find knockoff director who can make it for a little bit cheaper, crappier movie that the original director doesn't want to be a part of. So obviously this spoke to Wes in the sense that he stuck with the franchise and made 4 movies.
Yeah, that is impressive. You think something maybe along the lines of Jaws. Spielberg directed the first one, and then that franchise just dropped off a cliff. It was horrible.
Or even Wes Craven's own franchise, A Nightmare on Elm Street, that he started, right? He was only involved. He wrote a Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and he made the film A New Nightmare as a writer and director, but that was it.
Now, speaking of that, you had mentioned in pre-production that one of the movies, it might be A New Nightmare, is actually almost a little bit of him toying around with this meta concept for a genre like Scream.
I love it. And at some point, I think we need to do an episode where we're breaking down Scream and A New Nightmare. So A New Nightmare came out in 1994. Now,
Okay, so right before.
this was a very meta film in the sense that he has Heather Langenkamp, who is the actress who plays Nancy, playing a fictitious version of herself and fighting off the manifestation of Freddy Krueger, who exists in the real world.
Hmm.
And so he's playing a lot with he's playing around with the audience in terms of like what is real and what is fake, what's happening in the Nightmare on Elm Street movie that is being made simultaneously as we are watching the movie, what's happening in the character's psyche versus unfolding in real life in the film. So he's doing a lot of these very meta things that he explores further in Scream, but he also is having the same conversation that he really is exploring in Scream, with violence, with movies, with evil, good, horror, right? This whole concept that he has, really Billy talking about to not just Sidney Prescott's Nev Campbell, Sidney Prescott's character, but also to the audience. He does the same thing where he plays himself in A New Nightmare talking about Freddy Krueger. So there's a lot of similarities that I think are hard to miss when you look at this talented filmmaker. You're like, obviously, A New Nightmare is in many ways a precursor and a dry run for what went on to be Scream.
Okay. Well, speaking of Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, do you think Scream is Wes Craven's best film?
No.
Okay, what would you rank as his best?
Nightmare on Elm Street is Wes Craven's best movie. And
I mean, I'm going to go with Scream. I've seen Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm going to go with Scream here. That's just the one I watch the most, but go ahead.
I am convinced that Nightmare on Elm Street is the greatest horror movie of all time. First of all,
I still like Halloween.
Halloween's great, but Nightmare on Elm Street, I am blown away by the levels to the film. There's the surface level, but there's this very meta concept that even at that point in Wes Craven's career, 15 years before he made Scream, he's still toying with. We don't know. There's elements in the film where we truly don't know, is it real or is it the dream state that Nancy's in? And he has a lot of fun with it.
I mean, it is a great one. It's a staple for a reason. So definitely. That's a question I want to throw out to our listeners, though. What do you think is Wes Craven's best film? I would love to hear from you guys. So obviously, I think Ivor is probably going to step up big here. I'm guessing he's seen quite a few of them and will have a strong opinion about this. Drucker, you always seem to have a strong opinion. So I don't know how many of Wes Craven's films you've seen, but let us know what your favorite is. But that's for everybody. So anyway, CP, before we actually move on, I wanted to go through some facts about Scream that we found some on IMDb, some on a couple of different places. The opening scene with Drew Barrymore. I don't know if you knew this, but Drew Barrymore was originally cast to play Sidney Prescott, the film's lead character. However, due to scheduling conflicts, she suggested taking the role of Casey Becker instead. Her involvement in sudden death in the opening scene shocked audiences as she was the most recognizable star at the time, subverting expectations, as you mentioned.
I know that I didn't know that she was set to play Sidney Prescott, but I did read that one of the unintended consequences of the film was it made it acceptable for big stars to start taking roles in horror movies again.
Yeah, it is quite impressive because again, you seeing her promotion in all the posters and artwork and everywhere she was associated with the film, I'm assuming right out of the gate, everybody did not expect her to die.
She was going to be the final girl, and that was not the case.
So definitely cool. The voice of Ghostface, the creepy voice of Ghostface, was provided by actor Roger L. Jackson. To maintain authenticity, director Wes Craven kept Jackson away from the other actors during filming, so they had no idea what he looked like. This added to the unease and authenticity of their reactions during the phone call scenes.
Oh,
now,
I love that.
This is the interesting part. That actor would call the other actors during their scenes, delivering his lines in real time. So he was actually on the phone. Now, obviously, this is dubbed.
Yeah, we're hearing the dub version. But
but the actors were interacting with the phone call in real time.
I love that.
Yeah, this method was used to ensure the actors' reactions were as genuine as possible, especially for the like you said, the sort of standing around. so that we would be drawn to their face, which is very impressive. Amongst having them do different things, yeah, they're actually listening to a phone call, which makes more sense. The film's original title, like you mentioned, was Scary Movie, which later became the name of the parody film series. The title was changed to Scream, though, because it was inspired by the Michael Jackson song of the same name.
Really? I did not
Yes.
know that.
So I wanted to acknowledge that because you'd sort of brought it up earlier, but that was where and then obviously the painting.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that had some effect on the title. Let's see. What else do we have here? Skeet Ulrich, who played Billy Loomis, was cast because of his resemblance to Johnny Depp, who starred in Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street. And you could totally see it.
Yeah, you can see it.
Like 80s, 90s Johnny Depp, 100%. Matthew Lillard, who played Stu Macher, was cast in the film after accompanying his then girlfriend to an unrelated audition. And that guy is awesome. I mean, he totally embodies like the 90s teenager.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love when he gets stabbed and he's like, come on, go get the gun. And he's like, I think I'm dying, man. Stab me too deep. And then like at one point he's on the phone and he's like, you stupid bitch. And he like throws the phone at him. And apparently that when he threw the phone at Stu, he hit him in the back of the head, causing him to improvise the line, you hit me with the phone, dick. And that line was kept in the final cut, even though it wasn't in the script. He wasn't.
That's hilarious. I love it.
But it was funny because afterwards he ends up picking up the phone and he's like, hello. And then he starts having a conversation with whoever it is.
Yep.
Oh, that was hilarious. The character of Tatum Riley, played by Rose McGowan, meets her end in a garage door, a death scene inspired by the whole horror film Suspiria. The film is filled with references and homages to other horror films, making it a treasure trove, which, of course, we know that. They're having a lot of fun with that. Again, like I mentioned, after the release of Scream, sales of caller ID devices reportedly increased significantly. The film played on the fear of anonymous phone calls, prompting many viewers to take precautions, and they liken that to a similar effect that Jaws had on people being scared of going in the water.
Huh. Okay, I can see that.
Nick Cave's Red Right Hand, the song, which you probably know from Peaky Blinders, which can be heard throughout the movie, is the unofficial theme song for Scream. It featured in multiple entries in the franchise and has since become associated with the eerie atmosphere of the films.
Okay.
The Motion Picture Association of America initially gave the film an NC-17 rating due to its graphic violence. Wes Craven had to make several cuts to tone down the gore and secure an R rating. He reportedly submitted the film multiple times, each time making minor edits until the MPAA finally approved it. And it's already pretty bloody, as we acknowledged.
Oh, yeah.
Director Wes Craven made a cameo in the film as the high school janitor Fred, who is dressed in a red and green striped sweater, a nod to Freddy Krueger from his own Nightmare on Elm Street series. So, and then just a fun fact, most of Scream was filmed in Northern California, particularly in the towns of Santa Rosa and Healdsburg. The use of real locations rather than studio sets added a layer of authenticity to the film.
I like it.
So,
I like it.
Yeah. Kind of some fun facts about Scream, but CP, that does it for our episode.
So I have a question for you in the audience. I think one of the very interesting things about the Scream franchise is the character of Dewey.
Yes. 25-year-old cop.
25-year-old cop.
I'm 25.
So my question to you is this. Do you think that the version of Dewey that we have, and I don't know the answer for this, this is just kind of me thinking back, right? The version of Dewey we have, kind of the goofy, lovable buffoon,
David Arquette.
Good-hearted.
Totally David Arquette.
Is that a result of David Arquette, or do you think that that was written in a way where, in this film kind of critiquing the horror genre, right? Police officers are typically inept and buffoonish in most horror movies, which is why they're so useless. Right. In the genre.
Yeah. I do think that character is written that way specifically. Obviously, some of the, I think the vulnerability of that character is through the portrayal by David Arquette. But my guess is, though, that they are riffing on the cop stereotype within the slasher genre.
Because, I mean, I think Dewey is one of the greatest parts of the genre, right?
Yeah.
Or of the franchise. this character who is so lovable and good-hearted and actually always there to do the right thing. And he's like the one person that no matter what, in all the Scream movies, no one ever thinks Dewey's the murderer, because you're like, there's no way he is. He's the good guy. Which I also think is a nice nod to the audience, because in a movie where anyone can put on this Scream mask, we need to know that there's one person that we can trust in the world of Scream.
Yeah, I agree. I do think, though, yeah, they definitely have to be riffing on the cop stereotype. But I think what David Arquette brings to the character is that level of likability and vulnerability. He was cast perfectly for it. Because if you do it wrong, it's just another cop that everybody's like, nah, whatever. Yeah, he's the big brother.
Yep.
But also, he's constantly sort of being dismissed by them as siblings would.
Yep.
Get out of here, Dewey. Yeah, I'll throw it over to the audience. Let us know your thoughts. If you have any questions for us regarding Scream or any of the franchise stuff, be sure to let us know. We hope you enjoyed the episode. I know we wanted to do at least one horror film in anticipation of, sort of Halloween and the Halloween season. This was one that we'd wanted to talk about for a while. We actually held off so we could do it around Halloween. So I'm very excited for this episode to come out. And let us know if any of you are going to be Ghostface for Halloween. That'd be kind of interesting. I'm not a big mask guy for Halloween, CP. As you know, I'm a bit of a drinker. So I like to eat snacks and drink. And I feel like if I'm doing a costume, like I don't want to have my mask off, because then I'm like, why did I even buy this thing?
Well, I remember as a kid trick-or-treating with the Ghostface mask, and oh man, by the end of the night, it gets hot. You can't breathe because there's no nose holes in it. And you're like, ooh, this is not.
You get all sweaty on your face. I mean, okay. Have you ever, so you have been Ghostface?
Well, yeah, that's why I have the mask, man.
Well, you make movies. You could have a mask for a lot of reasons. True. But I too have been Ghostface at one point in my trick-or-treating career, and as probably many of us had. So I don't know. Send us, if any of our listeners, you guys have some cool Halloween costumes, send them our way. We can definitely share those on the show, or even throw them up on social media, because pretty cool when you got a good costume. Like I said, I actually went to a Halloween party with Ivor twice, and he was a Viking for one. It was pretty badass. I think I have a photo of us, so maybe I'll throw that up there.
Maybe you should.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll get to see him at another Halloween party this year. So Ivor, here's to you, man. I hope we get to hang out soon. That'd be awesome. All right, well, that does it for our episode, so be sure to follow the show at filmmakerscompass.com or at Film Comp Podcast or Film Comp Pod on social media. You can follow me at Big Kid D-Man and CP.
You can follow me at NDCal5. Thank you for hanging out and talking Scream with us. Please let us know your thoughts on the franchise and if you've seen the television show. Until then, keep watching movies, and we will see you back here next week.